Good evening, good evening. Thanks for joining me again tonight. We are still sewing up the holiday Hooligans from Getting Jazzy With It patterns. So we started this one on Friday last week, and we got a few of the bottom sections completed, some of the tree and round the table leg and into this, basically most of this section. There was only one little bit that we missed because I dropped the piece on the floor, but we'll pick that up again when we start doing more of the tree section. But tonight we're going to work on the body of the cat, just for a wee change, get away from the greens, but we've got a lot of back and forward with the oranges. So a lot of repetition, but that's good to get your head around it sometimes. So a few things I keep on hand when I'm doing my FPP projects. So I've already I've printed and pre-cut the pattern pieces, and I've just kind of bundled them into little piles based on how the patterns split up. So I've got those ready, and obviously my machine's all threaded up and ready to go. We'll need some rulers. These are sort of designed for FPP. These are called add a quarter rulers, for sort of trimming your seam allowances. You can just kind of see where it's kind of frosted, and then I don't know if you'll be able to see, but the 1/4 inch guide, there's like a raised section that you butt up against your paper and trim. So they're really handy. So I've got a small version and a big version of those. You need a rotary cutter for trimming the seam allowances, trimming any fabric. You'll need scissors again for cutting sections of fabric off as we need them. Just another little ruler that I keep handy. A seam ripper, always good to keep on hand if you need to remove stitches and if you've made a mistake, but I also use the blunt end of the seam ripper for pre-scoring the paper before I fold it. It's just, I've got it on hand, and it's got a kind of really thin blunt edge on the back, so it works really well, but you can use anything for scoring the paper. A pen just for marking some extra lines on the pieces before I sew, and a glue stick. I really only use this for the first piece, or if there's like really big sections of fabric that are just kind of flapping around, if you just leave them. So you can sort of just put a few dots of glue on to keep that down, and then your snips. And these are all things that are just keep to hand, because there's a lot of back and forth with FPP, so we'll just be going between all of these as we're stitching. Also, just keep the mock-up on hand so that I know what bits I'm working on at the time, so that we can check colours and things like that. We are dropping frames left, right and centre this evening. So apologies if we are a bit choppy in the video. Just bear with while I see what I can do. Doesn't look like there's much movement on our live. Right, I'll just get started just now and I'll keep an eye on it. Well, like I said, we've got a lot of, this is pretty much mainly the cat body, so we've got two main orange colours for this. None of them are particularly large, so I usually like to start with the larger pieces and work down, just so that I'm kind of cutting off the biggest pieces of fabric first. Getting the biggest bits of fabric that I need first, and then using the scraps as we go down in size, just so that we're not left with trying to squeeze big sections out of small bits of fabric near the end. But none of these are particularly big. There's some long pieces, so we'll just start with these and see how we go. Put these off to the side. So I've got a small pile here, a couple of different colours to begin with. We are looking for one. It's going to be this section. Just try to think why we could make one the bigger section. It's always easier if the first piece is bigger. And that should be fine. So what I'm going to do first is mark the seams into the seam allowance, because when you get these pieces, the stitch lines don't go into the seam allowance, but we need to stitch in there, so sometimes the lines will cross. Like you can see here, the lines meet right at the seam allowance, and so when we're stitching it can get a bit muddled and you're sort of stitching over yourself. So what I like to do is, before we start, find the last number in the sequence. So this is 8, and then we're going to extend the lines of that stitch first into the seam allowance. See if we can and then here, so we've extended this line, so this is the last stitch into the seam allowance. So you'll see the stitch before this meets it at the seam allowance, but if we'd continue this stitch in here, it's going to cause a bit of bother trying to add that last piece on. So now we'll take this, we'll just extend the line from here out into this seam allowance, and the same here. We'll extend this line at 6 out, and 5 will start and stop where it meets the line for 6. So again, just start at the end and work back, and just want to make sure we're not crossing any lines. But it is good to draw those stitch lines into the seam allowance, because sometimes they can sort of start and end a lot further away than you think they're going to. The big section is actually the wallpaper. I want AB. Yes. So, switch my iron on. This is the fabric I've got for the wallpaper. It's just a really low volume. So for the first piece, we want our fabrics facing down away from the paper, just for the first section. And I'm just going to cut a piece that's going to be big enough. Oops. So just a piece of cut. It doesn't have to cover the full bit of paper, just the section that we are trying to fill, including the seam allowance on all sides. And if you're struggling to know, you know, if you're struggling to tell, if you just hold it up to the light, you'll be able to see through and sort of see the shadow from the fabric, and just make sure that you're all covered. Oh, hi. Thanks for joining me again. Yep, hoping that your son has a long nap so that you can chat for a wee while. That would be great, but kids have got a way of knowing when you're wanting to use their nap time for something and just wake up. So just add in a bit of glue just for that first piece. Make sure you've got the fabric facing down. And I'll just give it a quick dab with the iron just to set the glue, just to keep it in place whilst we work on the next piece, the next section. So we're going to the line between section 1 and 2, and we're just, I like to pre-score the paper on that line straight across the whole length of the paper so that we can have a nice crisp fold. And this is where our add a 1/4 inch ruler comes in. So it's got a raised edge on it, so you just butt it up against the folded paper and you're going to get your full 1/4 inch, just like that. So now I need to see, I've already done a small section of the cat. I need to see what colour I used. So 6 is the plain darker, and So here's the two fabrics that I've got. I thought this was really nice. I think it's not really feathers. It kind of looks like I think it's actually like leaves, like foliage, but it kind of looks like animal fur a wee bit from a distance. So I thought that would be cute. Not that you're going to notice much because the sections are really quite small. But that's what I picked out. So we had 6 is the darker, 9's the lighter colour. So 6 is what we need for the next piece. Just for every piece of fabric we're adding after the first one, we want it facing up towards your paper so that your fabric is always right sides together. So just measuring how much I'm going to need. Again, a light box can come in really handy if you're struggling to see through the paper, but you just want to make sure that that fabric, when it's folded over, when the paper's folded, and you can see the section that we're going to fill, just making sure if you hold it up, just making sure that that full section's covered by the fabric plus your sort of 1/4 inch at least on all sides. Oh, I've ripped the paper already. So we've added it on, we're just stitching straight on the black line, start to finish, back stitching at the start and the end, and it should look like this. And then if you just fold it back and check that it covers, like again you can hold it up, checking that that fabric covers the full section that it needs to cover. And then we can just press that back. And move on to the next section. So that was 1 and 2. So the line, so now we're into 3. So the line between the pieces that we've done, that's where we're going to score. I'm going to go easy this time because my last one tore pretty much straight through the paper. Got my little bin because we're doing a lot of the cat body. I've got my little bins here to keep the orange scraps. And we are thin but long section. And remember, we need to take into account the seam allowance, so it actually looks like it stops here, but it's going all the way along to this bit here. Just manoeuvre the paper underneath the presser foot until I get it exactly where I want that needle to drop in, because we are meeting another seam line. A couple of stitches and a couple of back stitches, and then just follow the line.
Mr. Hands.
Got serious lag right. I'm dropping like 50% of the frames. Like, my bit rate's all over the place. No. Know that I've started, but now it's suddenly just saying excellent again. Suddenly just saying excellent again. It's been a warning since I started. Although it's still dropping frames like mad. Nothing currently updating. Again, we can save some of the bigger scraps to use later, so keep my little bins handy. No.
Hello.
It's went to green again, but it's still dropping frames. Although the bitrate, no, it's still jumping up and down all over the place. Apologies if you're getting lag, we are troubleshooting as we speak. I haven't changed anything from Friday's stream, and it's been not great since we started.
You put them out there if you wanted, but you come off from them back. You know what, Sean?
Six. So you've got to play as if you've got X-ray vision when you're cutting the fabric for your FPP, if you don't want to sit and measure every piece. But you'll see some people will just sort of place the fabric, like cut a bigger piece of fabric and just place it down kind of anyway as long as it fits. But I like to, and then come back and trim the seam allowance afterwards. But that can cause some issues with cutting the wrong bits of fabric off. So I like to start with the seam allowances already sort of pre-cut and match those up, and then one less step to come back to once we've got them stitched together. And go back stitched in. Thanks. What's your drink of choice? Ow. Here's our little cat tail, I think we're doing. Yes, it is the tail. Part of the tail. So we have 5, so we've got one more bit of orange, and then the what do you call it? Wallpaper. Here's my big scissors. Clips everywhere. That is doing better now. That's the top frames is coming right. Well, coming down. So in between each section, once you've checked that your fabric is the right size, big enough to cover the bit that you need plus seam allowance, then you want to press really well in between each section just to keep everything nice and flat and even, and it makes adding each next piece that much easier. So now you see we're on to wallpaper. So, bear with me for a second. Couple of quite big bits, so we're not going to have any offcuts right now. Make sure your fabric's the right way up. And pointing the paper down on top. Making sure that you've got a little bit extra for the seam allowance on each side. Definitely not big enough. You can hold it up to the light just to double check the coverage, especially if you're using a thicker paper that's maybe a bit harder to see through. If you're going to use, hi Jaja, how are you? If you're going to use just regular printer copier paper, just make sure it's the really, really thin stuff, like lower than 80 GSM. GSM or lower. Having a bad storm last night and today. Actually, it's been going on for a week now, but there's no power at work today, so it's cancelled. Work's been cancelled because of a power cut. Those are the best days. Hi Crystal, thanks for joining us. Love your camera setup. Thanks very much. I'm a bit over the top with it. I need more cameras. Never have too many different angles to look at. So, that's this piece finished. That maybe the top of its tail. A wee bit weird with the fabric choice, but that'll just have to do. So many different shades of orange you can have in your stash. So that's just got all the pieces on this bit attached. So I'm just going to bring out a regular clear ruler to trim the seam allowance, and what I like to do is match up the seam allowance line. Oh, thanks for subscribing, Crystal. Oh, winter storm here and preparing for the power to go out. Oh, that's Emma said that. storms everywhere. We have, yeah, it's been horrible here today. It's wet and miserable. Now you are going to probably end up cutting some paper here, depending on how you've pre-cut your paper to begin with. So if you want to use your designated paper rotary cutter, you can do that. Fish out our savable scraps. And that's this piece trimmed ready to go. You can kind of see from the picture here, it's the end of the cat's tail. So that can go in the done pile. We're doing these tiny scrap bits. And a new section. Again, we're doing quite a bit of the cat's body, so it's going to be a lot of back and forward with the orange stripes, with the odd different colour thrown in. I think this is the cat's like body, like belly section. Yeah, so I've got, although that's the end. Why would you make that the end piece? Yes, aye, that has to be the end piece. That's, I think. Right. Let me dot this. So, tiny piece for one, so that section. So, just need a small piece, so let's see if we can fish something out the bin. That should be fine. First section, I'm just kind of holding it up, make sure I can see through the paper. Just a dot of glue just to keep this first piece in place. Again, you can hold it up to the light, make sure that's covered. So actually, what I'm going to do first is do my lines. Not really any crossovers on this one because it's pretty straightforward stripes. Good afternoon, the guy who sews. Thanks for joining us. Where are you joining us from? It is actually evening here. It's nearly 9 o'clock at night. But do let us know where you're joining us from. We've got quite a few people from sort of central to west North America. So afternoon for a lot of other people. So what I like to do first before I start is just extend the stitch lines out into the seam allowance to make sure that we've not got any crossovers and to get some of the really sharp angles that would maybe come a lot further down in the seam allowance than what you might think for where we're starting and stopping. Thanks so much for the subscription. Sean, is it? Oh, Jaja has been sharing us on the Discord again. Thanks so much. Welcome in, Awkward Quilter. Thanks for joining us. We are just doing FPP again this evening. Now, my notification showed up there, but there was no noise. But it worked in the test. You got your earphones on? No. I'm speaking to you, that's fine. And just put your volumes on, so see if there was notification sound in on the stream. I learned how to do FPP. Actually, I struggled with it for a while and I had kind of given up on it. But so not this year, but last year, I signed up for Whole Circle Studios Block of the Month, which is an FPP. You get obviously one block every month, but it's all FPP, and then it makes a full-size quilt at the end. And she had really good tutorials on how to do FPP, and that's when it clicked for me, like the way she explained it with how to get the fabric to be the right size and you know, how to match it up and everything. That's how I learned like how to do it more often without as much failure. Yes, a lot of people are working, no problem. Thanks for the alert. Hi, Deb, thanks for joining us. Debs. I'm just going to run notification again and just see if there's it showed there should have been noise, but I didn't hear it. Bear with me, guys. I'm just making sure that I can hear any alerts just so that I don't miss anything. I've seen the noise, like the. Aye, but I'm not hearing it. It chimed on my screen. Yeah, that's cool. Thanks. I should be able to hear it, like from my computer, but I can't hear it. But I should be able to. That's fine. Yeah, was it too loud? Because I can't tell how loud it is. Anyway, just don't want to miss anybody. I'll get my hammer. Oh, I've lost track of what I was doing now. Right, I've marked. So I just like to go in and mark the stitch lines out into the seam allowance, just so that I know where I'm starting and stopping. Hi Adriana, thanks so much for joining us. This is Adriana's pattern from, so it's the Holiday Hooligans. Adriana's website is Getting Jazzy With It. You can pick this one up and tons of other great ones on our site. We have, so I don't know if you can see Derpy Cat in the background there. That was also one of Adriana's. Welcome to your first YouTube live. I'll tell you, this is only my second time doing a YouTube live. So no one knows what's going on, including me. Right. So I've drawn my lines so that I know where I need to start and stop each stitch, especially if it's went into the seam allowance. The next step, I've added my first piece. Need to find this ruler. First thing I'm going to do now is gently pre-score the paper, because we want to fold right on the line. So, and then this is just a bit of the glue stuck, so I'm just peeling that back. Keep losing things. Oh, here it is. You'll be lurking, no problem at all. Thank you so much for being with us and dropping a lurk. So I also like to pre-cut the seam allowance before we begin. You'd never know this was your second live. I've done, like, I've tried live a couple of times on Twitch, and honestly, I've been trying to do this for years. Right, so I like to pre-cut the seam allowance so that I can match up the next piece, which is, so I'll get this out of the way. Switching between our two oranges here. And I don't pre-cut any of the pieces, I just lob bits off my bit of fabric. So this is the printed side, but your first piece we stick to the back. We've then folded it so that the fabric's now facing down, and so make sure our fabrics are right sides together. We want every bit of fabric from now on to be right sides up. So you've kind of got to look through the paper. You can't really tell on camera, but I can see the printed lines through the paper. So I'm just looking to make sure that the fabric's going to cover the whole area plus seam allowance. And then, like I said, I just like to lob bits of fabric off. I like to try and get a straight line so that I can just match up the seam allowance with the new piece of fabric so that I'm not having to go back and cut the seam allowance again. Just kind of cuts out a step. I'm just picking up just to double check where the lines are and making sure. So here's where the piece comes up to, but we need a bit of seam allowance, so we've got plenty here. And again, you want to look at where it comes down to. It's actually quite a narrow section, and then obviously if you lift the paper up, we've got plenty of overhang there. So this piece is big enough. Now we want to open our paper back up, and we're literally stitching on the printed line between sections 1 and 2. We're starting up against this line first, so we're going to drop our needle in right where the 2 lines meet, take a couple of stitches, back stitch, and then stitch off into the seam allowance and back stitch. I've got my stitch length down at a 1.4, which is what I use most of the time when paper piecing. The only time I might knock it down to a 1.2 if the sections are really, like if the stitches are really short. But generally I stick to a 1.4. So let's see if we can jump in and see us here. There we go. So just making sure our fabric's stayed in the right place, because sometimes it can shift on you if you're sort of moving it across the flatbed. And when you're sort of shoving it under the plate as well, it can kind of shift on you, so just keep an eye on that. Getting a general idea of where I think the needle's going to come down, and then I just use my hand crank and bring the needle all the way down until just before it's touching the paper, so I can see exactly where it's going to go in, and then just adjusting that last little bit so that I know it's going to start exactly where I want it to. Couple of stitches back stitch, and then we're just going straight into the seam allowance on this one, so we can just stitch off. And then just back stitch at the end. Before we do anything else, I just like to fold the fabric back and make sure it's definitely covering that piece that I need it to. We can hold it up to the light. I don't know if you'll be able to see from this angle, but it's this one here we're trying to cover too. If we hold it up to the light, we can see that that's definitely being covered by the fabric there, so that's great. We can just press that seam back and get ready for the next section. Just need to wait on my iron heating up again. If you've got any questions, just shout them out in the chat. I'm just going to continue talking through what I'm doing anyway. I hope you enjoy our YouTube approved Christmas music. There's not a huge selection, so it will repeat at some point. So, swapping colours for the next section. So here's where we're at. We've got 1 and 2. We've ironed it. Next step. Lost that clear ruler again. Where did it go? No idea. Stuff just goes missing. always just like to rescore the paper. Cha-cha's boogieing. Got our seam allowance. Don't know if that's worth saving. I've got a bin of slightly bigger offcuts just to see if any of them will fit, but I don't think so. This piece is a bit long. So I'm just kind of judging through the paper how big we're going to need the fabric. Again, I can see through the paper slightly, but just get a piece that's definitely big enough. Make sure you've got that straight line and just matching up that seam allowance. It just means I don't have to come back and trim it back again once I've stitched it. There are some times where you have kind of got to fit a bit of fabric into an odd shape, and so I will, but then I would still trim it before I sew it so that I don't have to try and trim it afterwards and risk trimming the wrong piece of fabric. So we're starting in the body of the piece again, so manoeuvring the paper until I get the needle to come down where I want it. Some short popped up today that you watched explaining the difference of the UK and Great Britain. Never knew Ireland was two places. Such a subject. Ireland is a very small island, but it does have a north and a south. And the south is its own country, called Ireland. That's right, have you seen any of those videos of like Colin Firth and Cillian Murphy? They always get called British and then they correct them that they're Irish.
Sorry.
Sorry. I definitely think there's one of Cillian Murphy. And then but the interviewer's like, yeah, same thing. And he's like, no, it definitely is not. The people in the comments were saying that too, yeah.
Easter Risings.
That's what the people in the comments were saying, yeah. It's like calling everyone from the UK English. You're gonna get backlash. there. What machine, Adriana's asking what machine I have. This is a Brother A50. It's a beginner entry-level machine, but it's great. It's got all the features that I wanted from my sewing machine. I know that between the sort of UK and US, the names can be different, but it's a Brother Innovis A50. I had a hand-me-down machine first, which was fine for starting, but it was really like basic. So there were a few things that I wanted to have when I was buying, upgrading my sewing machine. One of them was a stop-start button, which I'm actually not using now. I'm using the foot pedal. But sometimes I do like to use the stop-start button. It's got speed control. I don't know if I can turn this sound like this. So, oh, wait now. Hide this guy. There we go. Let's hide this. Yep. So, speed control. I can limit how fast the machine goes. Even if I'm using the foot pedal and I put the foot down, you can limit the speed on it. It's got a needle up-down button. Which is really good. I also like that it stops in the needle down position. You have to tell it, I think, that you want it to do that, but that's an option that you can do. You can have it so that anytime it stops when the needle's down in the fabric, which is good if you're doing anything where you need to like pivot the fabric and turn it around. What about the stop button makes you not want to use it? There was a project I was trying to do and I just couldn't get to it quick enough. I think it was maybe because I'm doing the FPP. Because, for example, let's see. Like, for example, if I was stitching this line and I have to stop it before it passes this line, I couldn't get to the button quick enough to stop where I wanted it to. I've got much more control with the foot pedal. My old machine, I didn't have a lot of control with the foot pedal, so I kind of didn't like it. Kind of put me off, because even if you just sort of tapped it, it would instantly stitch like 3 stitches or whatever at least. So I'll just show you with this wee scrap. But with the, like, obviously, and I can push the needle down button so that it's starting where I want it to. But with this foot pedal, I've got much more control. I can literally make it take 1 stitch. Whereas my old machine, I couldn't do that. Like, as soon as I touched the foot pedal, it went. So when I'm doing FPP, I've got much more control, like in the speed. I can like speed it up, or I can slow it right down so that it's literally just taking 1 stitch at a time. But yeah, I do still use the start stop button. It's just dependent on the project. That's why I stopped using it for FPP. Makes you miss your old brother. I love the speed control. Yeah. Now you've got a jazz too. Don't even know what that is. Let's have a look. Oh, oh. Your signals went rubbish again. A baby lock jazz too. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, that's why I don't like it. You can, I think, you never get to it when you need to in time. Sometimes. Oh, does that not have a speed control? Yeah, that was just when I was buying a new machine. That was one of the things that I was looking for, was that speed control. I would like a thread cutter on her next machine. That would be nice as well. That's a bit above what this the starter machine can do, but no, that's definitely another option. You go through so much thread, just like, especially in FPP, with like so many short stitches, but you have to sort of leave your tails every time, so you do go through a lot of thread. I think the big machine's got a thread cutter. Yeah. My Big Bertha here's got a stitch cutter. A thread cutter. I don't use it a lot though. One of your friends recommends a knee lift. Yeah, I've never tried one. I think that's got one, but I've never used it. But yeah, is the knee lift to do the press her foot up and down? Because that would be good, especially for bag making, because you do a lot of stopping and pivoting in the bag making. And this one, so I do bag making on my Bernina, and it doesn't have a manual presser foot lift. You've got to use the button, and it's so annoying. Yeah, so that's, I used this. So it's a Bernina, it's really old. I got it pre-loved. I just got it, was it the start of this year I got it? Refurbished. Pre-loved. It's a very, very old machine. It's a Bernina 830. But yeah, I embroider my quilts, so my edge-to-edge quilts, I do that on this machine. And I use this one for bag making because it's very powerful, heavy duty. Yes, it's definitely got a lot of metal inside it compared to these plastic things. Yeah, so I got this particular one because it's got the biggest hoop, biggest size embroidery hoop you can get. So obviously, if I wanted to do quilts, I was going to get the most coverage in one hooping. That's what I got.
What?
Hooping, yes, that is the word in embroidery. Because some things need multiple hoopings. Yes, I did try to embroider a quilt with an embroidery machine that only does 4x4, and I gave up after one hoop because it was going to take forever. And that was a small quilt, like a baby size quilt. I gave up on that one. I've done it now on this one though. Did I finish? Yeah, I finished it, didn't I? I just need to bind it. Apologies if we are getting tons of lag again. I don't know what's going on tonight with the internet. Yeah, 4x4. I didn't know what I was doing when I was buying that embroidery machine. Did not do my research on that one. It's going to be a bit tight. What's the size of the one you use now? So the Bernina, technically the hoop size is, I need to look it up, it's 14. So the biggest hoop size, the jumbo hoop, is 15 3/4 by 10 1/4. But it doesn't actually stitch that big. The hoop is that big, and it should, like, it looks like it would, but that one, because this is so old, I think the newer ones might be able to do, you know how like an embroidery hoop's usually like an oval shape, but the Snap Monster hoops are like rectangle, and a lot of the designs that I've got for them are like the full 14 by 10 to fit like in the rectangle shape, to fit in the biggest rectangle, but it doesn't actually stitch the rectangle shape, it stitches in the oval shape like what the original hoops were designed to be. So I've actually got to go down a size to get it to fit, which is like the, I was going to say 12 by 16, but that can't be right. But we can see. But yeah, so the designs tend to be like 14 by 10, but I need to go down to like the 9 by 12 or something like that to get it to actually fit without me having to resize the design. But it still does a decent size of stitch out to like cover. Oh, it'll not work because I've not got my embroidery unit plugged in anyway. Never mind. But yeah, so that one takes the jumbo hoop, which is the biggest one you can get. Rearrange myself again. Right. I should be able to work and chat at the same time. I need to pre-score. See if we can get, I still haven't found that. There it is. Clear ruler. Wasn't a very good angle. But just pre-score right on the line, right across the piece of the pattern piece, so that we get a really nice crisp fold. So that, see if you can get a better view of this. See how The ruler's got a lip on it. So the 1/4 inch portion is raised. It's designed to butt up against your folded paper like this. Thanks to all you guys who have shared the live on Discord or Instagram. I quick jump on Instagram to check something and noticed that there's been a couple of shares and stories, so thanks very much. So see if you can get a good view here. So this is the line. We're on this one here. We don't want to sew over here because we're going to put obviously another section here. So we're going to start where it meets this line, a couple of stitches back stitch, but then at this end we're going into the seam allowance so we can just sew straight into the seam allowance down here. So I'll just position the paper underneath the pressing foot, roughly getting that intersection in the middle, but then I'll use the hand crank on my machine to drop the needle down until it's almost touching the paper so that I can adjust it further so that I can get that needle to drop into the paper exactly where I want it to go. Couple of back stitches. I don't know if you'll be able to see here, but I have my stitch length set. Come on, focus on this bit of paper. There we go. I've got my stitch length set at a 1.4, which you can see they're very short stitches. That helps, one, with perforating the paper so that we can remove it at the end, but also, I mean, this is quite a long seam, but some of them are very short. So the shorter stitches means you're getting more security with the shorter sections. Looking good. Thanks very much. We're doing the cat's body. Don't know if you were here when we mentioned that. So we've done his wee tail. These oranges are a bit clash a bit, but I'm trying to use up my stash, so that's what I had in my stash. You weren't here for that, but yeah, I don't know. Like that was right at the top of the show, as they say. I think. Does that mean the start? Pro streamer here. Yes. Jaja says yes. We'll go with that. Oh, we've lost the overhead. Two sticks. These bits are more straightforward because most of it's just like these thin stripes, so nothing too crazy when we're trying to work out our pieces of fabric. So take your wins when you get them. Sometimes it's nice to get the easy bits done so that you can get a win. Oh, I might not have cut this long enough though. Ah, it's a bit shy. Never mind, cut a new piece. So when you're starting out and you're cutting your fabrics, just make sure you've got plenty of overhang at the side so you can kind of see it's poking out here. So we've got more than a 1/4 inch extra here, and the same here. The fabric comes to here, and I mean it's plenty deep enough here because the bit's only to here. So you know, just cut yourself a big enough piece, and you're when you're starting out, it's easier than trying to cut exactly the right size piece and it just being that bit too short. And then as you get used to it, you'll know what's going to fit and what's not. But if you are still struggling, another way that you can sort of pre-cut your fabric is just to imagine drawing a rectangle box right the way around. So if we look at our straight line, we're going to add, if you're just starting out, I would add a 1/2 inch either side of where it starts and stops, but you need to remember you're including the seam allowance, so we're actually going to weigh out to here. So we're adding a 1/2 inch before and after the line stops. Then measure from 1/2 inch above the straight line to, I mean this is pretty much a rectangle, but whatever the lowest point is, measure a 1/2 inch more and after, and just imagine you're putting it in a box that's got a 1/2 inch buffer all the way around it, and that should be big enough. What? Tell me this. Here, a lot of our fabrics is Americana. Do you guys get fabric over there too? I feel like no, but I don't know. You have your own Scottish fabric, or am I making it up in my head? Do you mean like the designs, like tartan aside? You definitely get Scottish themed fabrics. And what about you, Emma? Oh, asking Emma, who's in the middle of nowhere, Canada. Yeah, so you definitely get Scottish themed prints, which I've got Highland coos, thistles, like tartan or plaid patterns on them. Colours would be greens and purples. This tend to be what you find in the Scottish themed colours. Highland coos are obviously orangey coloured, but they would be on like scattered on a background of like white or green or something like that. The whole lines this year coming out all American themed. I get that. I definitely see a lot of those. Definitely very much more patriotic than the UK. I think, yeah, I've seen as well, Art Gallery Fabrics have just came out with our Highland wovens, I think. They're kind of tartan wovens. I take issue with people mispronouncing Highland. But yeah, if you've got the new Art Gallery Fabrics Highland line, let me know. Let me know what it's like. I don't know whether to get some of it or not. I think it's wovens though, and I'm not sure about wovens. I do like the look and feel I like the wovens because I've got some fabulism, but I don't know how it holds up. I only like some. I don't care for the old-fashioned prints. Yeah. See, my mother-in-law likes those, like the traditional print, like the traditional colours and prints, like that kind of Americana style. It's not something I would ever buy though. So if I wanted to make her, I've been looking for ages, like of something that I think I would like, but I mean it's still got pink in it, so it's not a colour palette that I can get on board with. And then the only things I've ever seen that's got Canadian vibes is like actual like those cartoonish prints of like moose and hockey sticks and just stuff. Stuff of that. It's made a quilt top with woven fables and wovens, and it threads so bad. Wanted to quit. Yeah. It's soft but a mess. Yeah. I made a quilt, not the quilt top, but the backing fabric. I used like it was called shirting fabric. And it frayed like mad. Like I had it quilted, and then as it was kind of knocking about before I got the binding on it, the edges frayed so badly. I had to go around and like trim all the edges before I could put the binding on it. Oh, it's hockey. Oh, are you quite close to the border? In Washington, is it? Yeah. I definitely wanted to do something to that fairing fabric. But I've got a serger now, so I serge the edges of the quilts when I'm finished with them, so that if I do have to leave them and come back, they're not too bad. That's when I remember to do it though. But it's so good because it feels like your quilt's finished if you serge the edges and you can start using it. it just puts you off trying to do the binding. Not too far. 4-hour drive to the border. You're going to try that with a, yeah, even just zigzagging the edges would help, but that takes so much longer. And the good thing about the serger is you can go for hours and not have to worry about the bobbin running out. You always stop. It's so like, get so far and you're like, oh, I'll check the bobbin. Oh wait, don't have to. Just make sure your massive cones of thread are still there and it looks like you've never even used them. Keep losing stuff. It's kind of pushing it with this scrap strip, but there's some seam allowance there, so happy with that. It's a downside of using really short stitches is if you ever need to pick them out, it's going to take you a while. Oh, balls. Can you spot the mistake? Focus you. Remember when I said about unpicking stitches that are really short? I'm going to demonstrate right now.
It wasn't a mistake, it was very...
I did that on purpose so that I could show you how to fix your mistakes. A few Canadian themed fabrics, but most of them novelty. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Novelty. Whimsical and irreverent. We tried to watch the new version of the Roses today, and we gave up about halfway in. Probably not even halfway in. Did get a fat quarter bundle. Wish I remembered the designer, but it included Canadian postage stamps, the Northern Lights and other more modern designs of the maple leaf. That sounds nice. I've got my Canadian quilt. It doesn't have Canadian fabric, but I bought the fabric in Canada, and the pattern is kind of maple leaf style, so it's my Canadian quilt. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. You can reverse image search the pattern, see if you can find it. Oh, just can't get to it to check, that's what it is. So the problem I've got when we're unpicking these tiny stitches is we've now damaged the structural integrity of the paper. So we just have to take our time and not just rip the paper up, or you're going to have to, especially because we've still got a few bits to go, try to avoid reprinting, because then you've got to try and find the right page with a bit on it. I take back what I said about chatting and sewing at the same time. Pretty much ripped this bit of paper in half, but yeah. We'll make do and mend. Ah! Hanging on by a thread. Get that. Right. I actually needed the bright orange colour. Just gonna grab a bit of tape. Just if you are having to sew through tape, your needle might not like that. But alcohol wipes can usually get the sticky off of the needles in between stitches. So I'm just gonna have to guess where that was supposed to be. Ah. And you cross your fingers and hope that you haven't made the same mistake twice, because I've definitely done that before. All fixed. You can see I just stuck a bit of tape. The paper was coming apart pretty much right the way across, so just stuck a bit of tape to keep the two sides together and stitched over it. And that particular tape's just plain double-sided tape, so it's not too sticky. Regular sellotape would probably be even better. If you've seen the reel I posted this week, this is my favourite bit where you get to use up the tiny, tiny scrap pieces that you would normally just toss with regular quilting. I noticed Netflix, I've got what's that show that John Hamm was in? Back on Netflix anyway. That's it, Mad Men, yeah. You can watch it again on Netflix. I think I tried watching it before, but yeah, so we tried watching The Roses today, and we got probably less than halfway through it and switched it off. They definitely put all the funniest bits in the trailer. We ended up watching the first Knives Out instead, because we had not seen that one yet. And now there's 3 of them, so we have to catch up. The second one's got Ed Norton in it though, so I don't know if I'll be able to watch that one. The worst when all the good cuts are in the preview, yeah. Right, now this bit says it isn't the same fabric for the next piece, so let me double check why. Got a bit of it on. A. Right. So, same fabric this time. I am going to quickly swap out mics and be right back. Back. Didn't want to repeat of last week where my mic ran out literally 2 minutes after I checked it was still powered up. You've watched any new movies lately? We don't get to the cinema a lot, so we usually wait until it's on streaming. Although the View Cinema's got those fancy reclining seats. Oh yeah, you were going to see The Grinch on Saturday. Was it good seeing it in the cinema? Last movie I went to was Back to the Future in IMAX a few months ago. It was amazing. That would be amazing. To see classic movies like that in IMAX.
Even it's a movie, it's classic.
A tiny wee bit shy on that scrappy piece there, but it's in the seam allowance and I'm going to leave it. Real question, what version of The Grinch is best? Mr. Small says the book is best. I don't know if I've ever watched the Jim Carrey version all the way through. It kind of gives me the creeps. Emma says the Jim Carrey one. That sounds like Canadian bias to me. Yeah, I don't know if I've actually watched it from start to finish. But I've watched the animated one a couple of times. His favourite is the live action one, but I don't think you have a favourite. Does the live action one have songs in it? Like, do they sing the songs? Ow. Oh, Canadian bias. I think the live action's funny. Yeah, funnier, yeah. It's more quotable than the animated version. All good fun though. I tried to get my wee one's going to be 6 this weekend, and I tried to get her to watch it last weekend maybe. I couldn't. She said no. She also did not want to watch A Muppets Christmas Carol either. So I need to save that one for when she's in bed. What's a Christmas movie you will watch every year? songs have gone very quiet. So the last piece on this section, I don't know if you can see, but Joanna leaves the little colour squares on her patterns to keep track of the colours. Growing up, I watched lots of Muppets Christmas Carol. Our house now watches the live action Grinch about 3 times a week. Jeez. That's like us with Elf. Like, we would watch Elf all week. Much to my 16-year-old son's disgust. This scrap of fabric gets used for, I mean, it literally was a scrap. I've used it for test stitching. There's interfacing stuck to it everywhere. Don't know if it's a movie, but the Frosty the Snowman cartoon, and then the live action Grinch. There's probably a million different Frosty the Snowmans. I don't know which one to start with. Oh, we have this thing here. What's it called? That snowman thing. The snowman. Called the snowman. That's a British thing, eh? It's like a mini. I've got no idea. It's like a little mini. It's just like a song, actually. But it doesn't have any, like. No. It doesn't have it.
No dialogue.
Yeah, dialogue. It doesn't have any, it's like, so it's like a little short movie at Christmas time. There's no dialogue, but there's a song. And it is a very annoying song. But it comes on and it gets parodied all the time. Maybe it's Christmas, maybe it's Halloween, but Nightmare Before Christmas. But we watch it around Halloween. Yeah, we watch it at Halloween. That's a Halloween movie. I'm also not a huge Tim Burton fan, so I've really got to push myself to watch that one with the kids. So this is where his foot's going to be. And this is his wee tummy. So the oranges are a bit clashing, but I mentioned that I'm just trying to use up scraps for this one, or use from my stash. So that's what I came up with. So I was trying to use ones that had some print on them, just so that give it a bit of visual interest in just doing all solids. And my solid oranges are all like bright or like really burnt orange colour anyway, so it would have been crazy. So I can just trim this. I'm gonna need this again right for the next bit, so chop that. Oh, I'm gonna stand up to trim this and stretch my legs. Did you say clashing? I think it goes well. Yeah, I just think they're... I don't know if it's coming across them. Maybe when it's done it will look fine, but... I was just going to say it in the camera, like, yeah, maybe it doesn't look too bad on camera. But yeah, this orange really quite bright, and then this orange is really, like the contrast different, that's what it is. So interesting how a big pattern looks so different when it's cut up small. Yeah. I know it's hard. FPP is so hard trying to like pick fabrics to visualize it as a whole piece, because you're trying to guess what stuff's going to look like together. You can only really go by, you know, is there too much like, yeah. So yeah, that's just what it is with this. Again, I think the bright lights are blowing it out, but just the contrast is different. Don't know if we'll be able to... Let's just see. This might not work. What would you use to turn it to like black and white? Oops, no, I just clicked on this. No. Ugh, I can't do it on this camera. Anyway, one way to check if your fabrics have got enough contrast is to take a picture and look at it in black and white, and then if the colours, like if the greys are too close together, then you're kind of going to lose the... there's not going to be enough contrast. I think as well, you don't realise how big something's going to be when you're working with such small sections. But like, so looking at it, like this, that's literally just like this triangular kind of section here. And like it's like half the size of this sheet paper. This is going to be the 24-inch version, I think I printed off. If you grab the pattern, it comes in 16-inch, 20-inch and 24. But if you ever wanted anything you're ever looking for a custom size or even a custom design, Adriana does, you can speak to her and she might be able to do some custom work. I know she's been doing a lot of pet portraits the last couple of weeks. There we go. Kitty's booty. These little tail. That has been 2 hours and 20 minutes to make these 2 sections. We're getting there. I haven't really done any in between your stream on Friday. The only piece that I did was this small section for the John Ham reel that I did. So we're ticking them off, that's for sure. Hopefully we'll get it finished before Christmas. But we have got, it's been a busy, it was a busy week last week and we've got another busy week this week. Because we had our 6-year-old, she had her she goes to stage school and they had their Christmas show at the weekend. So she had a regular class on Saturday morning and then the show was on Sunday morning. That was like both weekend days, like the first half of the day was gone, both days. And we've got her at the dentist tomorrow, and then school's kind of an early finish on Friday. They finish up early on Friday for the holidays, and then it's her birthday on Saturday. So busy time of year for sure. And on top of that, got the blooming elf every night to try and organise. Because obviously I think I've got time to spare. Busy, exactly. And she just keeps adding to her birthday list and her Christmas list. I think I'll ask for this. No, you've already written countless lists. You're done asking for stuff. This piece is not big enough. Or is it? Chancing it with this one. So just more orange stripes with this next piece, just the stripes, no extra colours, and there's only a few to do. So let's bash through these. If you've got any questions, just pop them into the chat. So here's a piece where I had to put it at an odd angle just to get it to fit. So the first thing I want to do is trim the seam allowance so that I've got a straight edge to match the next piece up against. So printed side, the first piece goes right side down, and all the other pieces after that are right sides up. So the fabric's always going right sides together, just in regular quilting or any regular sewing. This piece is pretty straightforward, it's just stripes, so I'm not having to worry about starting and stopping next to other seams. We're just sewing straight from one seam allowance side to the other. So a bit easier than our playlist finally finished. Isn't too bad, it's an hour and a half long playlist. Oh, I did it again. Oh, awfully quiet. Another piece done. So to trim the come on, there we go. To trim the, so when you print your pattern piece, this solid line is your stitch line and the dotted line is your seam allowance guide. Oh, here's still got to make the block from the tutorial. Oh, no worries, I'll look forward to seeing it when you get a chance to make it. It's a good one, it's super quick. Yeah, so the solid line is your stitch line and the dotted line is your seam allowance. So now that we've attached all our pieces of fabric and made sure that we have got enough to cover the full piece, we can just trim off the excess so that we've left. What I like to do, instead of just trimming, like using the seam allowance as the guide, this is quite a big ruler, but I line up the stitch line with the 1/4 inch line on my ruler and then trim based on the ruler's 1/4 inch and not the paper's 1/4 inch, just for discrepancies in printing and stuff. It's, you know, it's not going to make much difference. That's just how I like to do it. Yeah, if you get a chance to make the block from the tutorial, I'd love any feedback on the video and the instructions itself, because that's like the first one that I've sort of filmed and uploaded. So if there's anything that's unclear or anything you think that's been missed out and that would be helpful to know, or something that could be explained better, that would be great. Some feedback for the next one. The next one is this guy here. So this was the test block, the 18 inch block I'll do as a test, and then we do the 12 inch in the video. I'm not going to reach to get that back up there. Also, if there's any blocks that you'd like to see a tutorial on, sort of traditional blocks, I'll definitely take a look and see what I can do. I have got a book that's 365 cut blocks, so I mean, I'm not short for ideas, but just trying to gauge like how difficult they are and things like that. So that was some of the pieces for that. This has come apart. What have I done here? That'll be that clip that I found earlier on my day. The Fat Quarter Shop, I've got 3 blocks. Yeah, I mean, I've got a book full of block ideas. if I want to get the Farmer's Wife book, let me look up the name. I have got, one of them is just like a quilt block a day. Yeah, a block a day, 365 patchwork squares is the one that I've got. Plus I've got a really old one as well, which is basically the same thing, but it's like got hand-drawn blocks and it's that old. I borrowed it from my mother-in-law. But yeah, the one I've got, the block a day, it's kind of weird how it explains how to make the blocks, because it kind of references, it kind of just has what bits you need to cut out, and then like if there's like a stitch and flip unit, it will say, oh, reference this stitch and flip on like one of the first pages, so you kind of have to jump back and forth a lot if you don't know like what you're doing. And it uses templates as well, instead of just giving you like the direct instructions of being like, cut this size. Farmer's Wife 1930 sampler quilt, yeah. Do any of them, I know. I'm the same, I don't read the patterns, I much prefer a video. But then when I was doing, so I got a place in the quilt pattern writers course a couple of years ago. So I had written a quilt pattern and I'd sent it out to, or I was just doing some, what do you call it? What do you call it when you like poll people? Like consumer
research.
Yeah, like consumer research. So I'd like polled people on my Instagram, like, what do you prefer? Written pattern, or a video tutorial, or a written pattern that has a video to back up like the trickier sections. And most people said a written pattern with like the odd video clip that just covers tricky sections, and I was like, oh no, I need it to be like full video.
No, actually, can keep it. So
They are lying. No, I'm with you. I'm like, video. That's like, I've started making bags, and like most of the, like, see if there's not a video on how to make it, I'm not going to make that bag. It's like the patterns with pictures are just like even worse. Like quilt patterns, like at least the illustrations, I mean, they're not clear, but at least they're neat and tidy, whereas like people taking pictures are like, here's the step. I'm like, I don't know what that looks like. That is unclear. Yeah, so I've done, obviously video is my preferred method of learning stuff. So the patterns are sort of free in the video tutorial, but I've also done like a written supplementary written sheet of paper, just for people that do like reading. But I'm also terrible at writing, so I did a quilt pattern and I sent it to, like, you have to get it proofread. And mine's came back and she was like, you haven't used any full stops anywhere. And I was like, yeah, that's how I write. I don't write full stops. Like if I want to finish my sentence, I'll put an emoji at the end. Definitely need a video to go with the bags, yeah. That's why I did my YouTube wrapped, I don't know what they called it, recap. And Lynn's Handmade was my #1 because she does like great videos for all her bags. And I've watched a ton of them like repeatedly every time I like remake the bag. Yeah. I love the emoji. What is a full stop? What do you mean? So if you're just joining us, we are doing some foundation paper piecing this evening. I say this evening because it is 10:45 PM here. This is the pattern that we're doing. It's Holiday Hooligans by Getting Jazzy With It. Adriana, you can find her on YouTube, Instagram. She has a lot of great fun FPP patterns. I've printed and pre-cut all my sections and we're just working through the little cat's body. So the first piece we are going to printed side of the paper facing down. I've just stuck a wee bit of glue on there just to hold this first piece of fabric on. Just a tiny wee scrap, and now most of the time now we'll work with the printed side facing up. Who do you watch for bag making? So Lynn's Handmade for her patterns. Okla Roots does videos every week on tons of different patterns. So I usually watch, like if I'm looking for a particular bag pattern, like if it's not a Lynn's Handmade one, and the designer doesn't have a video, then I'll check Jess at Okla Roots. Some of the newer ones I've started watching is Beth at Sew Country and Kasaya at Saya Swag. She's got a lot of video tutorials as well. You've seen Okla Roots, yeah, she's got tons of videos. She does a video every week, at least. A video on a Monday. And it's usually about bags or pouches and stuff like that. Does the odd quilt and other things, but now it's mostly bags and pouches. So stuck your first piece down. Again, first thing I should have done first was extend my stitch lines into the seam allowance, just so that I know what's going where. We're going to start at the last section. So when we're piecing, we'll piece one in sequential order going up, but when we're drawing our lines, we're going to start at the last number and work back the way. It just helps, see, like this stitch is going into the seam allowance like longer than the actual stitch itself, just because of the angle. And it's sometimes hard to judge that just based off of your crease line, or you know, where you're just trying to stitch it blind. So now the next step is, so we've attached piece 1 just with a bit of glue. So now we're going to stitch on piece 2. So we're going to look for the stitch line between section 1 and 2, and we're going to fold the paper right on that stitch line. So I just like to pre-crease the paper just with a blunt, sharpish object. Some people will just put their ruler in there and fold the paper up. That is just personal preference, how you score and fold your paper. Next I would trim the seam allowance, but I've actually not left myself quite enough, but that's fine, it's just the seam allowance. Now we need to find a bit of fabric that's going to be big enough to cover this section 2. Make sure we've got the right colour of fabric. Dark. Can I get a top up while you head before you head upstairs? Thanks. So when you're cutting your fabric to fit, you need to make sure you're including the seam allowance when you fold it over, just when you're trying to gauge how big a piece you need. Just make sure if there's, well, you need to include seam allowance all the way around as well, but you need to include this portion of the, you can kind of see this portion that would be the actual outside seam allowance, but you do have to add seam allowance right the way around the piece that you are trying to fill. This square is pushing it a tad, but if I turn the fabric round, it's definitely going to fit. But now I don't have that straight edge at the top, so before I sew, I'm just going to trim that seam allowance down so that I'm not having to do it after. And apologies to everyone that's just sitting listening to me say the same thing over and over again, but FPP is very repetitive. So let's jump to this so we can see the machine view. So here's section 1, section 2. This is your stitch line here. So you can see we're actually starting up against what will be the stitch line after for section 4. But we don't want to stitch too far into this section because it will get in our way when we're trying to fold the paper and add the next piece. So I just like to start bang on the line. Take a couple of stitches, back stitch, and then sew down the full length of your stitch line, back stitching at the end. So I'll position the paper under the presser foot and I can kind of see right in here. I really like these machine feet with the open toe where you can see right through. it makes it really much easier to try and follow, because we're going to stitch straight on this line, so we're going to follow this line with our needle. So the open-toed foot really makes it easier to see that. So I'm going to position where I can see that intersection right in the middle of the presser foot there, and I'm going to drop my needle until it's just before it touches the paper, so that I can adjust and make sure that I get that intersection right underneath the needle where it's going to drop in. Just adjust. Right, is it shifting over a bit? Using the hand crank to put the needle exactly where I want it to start. And then at this point, if your paper gets shifted, see I've got my seam tape here, so at this point with our needle in the paper, we can adjust this until we get it back on the straight line. Take a couple of stitches, back stitch, and then for this seam, we're just going off the seam allowance, so we're fine just to stitch on. Just trimming our threads. And you can see our stitches there. I've got my stitch length set at 1.4, which is really small, but really helpful for FPP when you've got really short sections. I don't know if I've got an example on this one. A really small piece. Here's the eyes, because they always get really small. Like, this is hard to see, but like that. Are you going to focus? This line here, you're maybe not even a quarter of an inch long. I mean, actually it's going to go into the seam allowance, so it is longer, but if it wasn't, you do get ones that would be like quarter of an inch or less in length. So this short stitch length really helps with the security of those small stitches, those small stitch lines. And it also helps when it comes to tearing the papers out at the end. Having that shorter stitch length means you've got more perforations and the paper will just come out much easier. So we've got piece 1 and 2. So this is the piece that we're trying to fill here. We've stitched it on, and I'm just going to fold it back and make sure it covers that piece that we need it to. And what we can do is if we turn it around and hold it up to the light, we can see where the fabric completely covers that section, plus we've got extra for the seam allowance. Don't know how you do it. Which part? It takes practice, but once you get the hang of it, it gets addictive. Because you can just make so much more like interesting designs. The tiny parts, yeah. Well, there are some tricks that you can, if you're really struggling, there is some tricks that you can do with tiny sections. So, especially with like, you can get there. See, like this tiny white section, I mean, that's like 1/8 of an inch at its smallest side, and a tiny wee bit bigger on the other side. And then this black piece that it's attached to is obviously the same width, which is just over 1/8 by about 1/4 of an inch. What you can do is, instead of trying to stitch those together on the paper, is to stitch a white section to a black section that's much bigger to begin with, and then just stick that to the paper and sort of combine those two pieces together. But you have to stitch them together ahead of time, but stitch it like a much longer section. Add that, so just stick that to the paper where the seam obviously matches up with the stitch line on the paper, and then start from there. So you're starting with a slightly bigger section. When you're adding, that's the trickiest part, when the smallest sections are the first and second section. So like the white was piece number 1 and the black was piece number 2. Like, that was tricky. But when you're adding them in at a later stage, it's not as bad. But yeah, reduce that stitch length and then you've just got more stitches in your sort of tiny section. And again, you don't have to cut the pieces to be exactly the right size before you stitch them. Cut a much bigger piece and then you're going to trim it down anyway. So did you say you had that 1930s sampler book? Back in the chat and see what you said it was called. Farmer's Wife 1930s sampler quilt. $99 different quilt blocks. Plus inspiring letters from the farm women of the Great Depression. I've seen some of the clips. I've not watched it, but I don't have it yet. But I want to buy it. I'm pretty sure it's. Oh, is it FPP? I just closed it. I was just looking at it and then I've closed it. It must be a print to order book on Amazon because I can't see. Oh no, you can see a sample. Oh no, you can see most of some of the pages. Oh, they're all on point as well. Does it actually tell you how to make them? Because all I'm seeing is the blocks and then the letters. Oh yeah, for each block, instructions are provided for template piecing. And where applicable, rotary cutting. Yeah, that's what my book's like. It's like templates it uses. It does have the rotary cutting sizes, but it's very vague. On Amazon it says there's links to print out templates, yeah. Yeah, it says, I think there's some FPP templates, but I don't know if that's all the templates or the templates are literally just like cut out a square that's this big. No pictures though, so I don't know. But it looks cool, something different because the blocks are all on point, or their versions of them are. Which is interesting. Hi Mona, thanks for joining us this evening. Let us know where you're joining us from. It is late here, it's 11, just after 11 PM. So I'll be hanging about for just a wee bit longer. We're just talking about quilt books just now. Whilst my iron's sitting screaming because it's switched on and not getting used again. Oh, Jaja sent you. Jaja's the chief PR for this stream. So this is the pattern that we are working on over the next few streams. Last week we did most of this bottom section with some of the tree and the carpet and the table. Tonight we're working on the kind of back end of the cat, its tail, and this section up here. So a lot of orange stripes going on this evening. These are a couple that we've finished so far tonight. I think there was another one, yeah, with a tail. So we've got a few pieces done. There's been a lot more chatting this evening though. Jaja, you'll have to send me an invite to this Discord channel because I feel really bad that all these people are coming over from Discord and I don't know. I cannot return the favour. I tried going through the person's YouTube channel. I can't see there, but she did sub, but the link on her YouTube channel didn't work. So in between each piece, I like to pre-score the stitch line right across the paper so that we can fold that back and have a really sharp fold. We're going to trim the seam allowance down so we've got a straight edge to work off of. Don't leave myself much room on that one, but that's okay. This piece here. So this is a good example of being aware of the outside seam allowance. As you can see, this whole long section here is seam allowance, so when you fold it back, the seam allowance is a bit harder to see because it's the dotted line, whereas the stitch lines are like solid black lines. But you have to remember to include all of the seam allowance that's attached to that section, plus give yourself seam allowance on every side anyway. And fire up your X-ray vision. so that you can see where that fabric's going behind paper. If anybody's just joined us and you've got any questions, just drop them in the chat. I'm just going to be talking through what I'm doing anyway, but it is very repetitive, so sometimes I'll maybe miss what it is I'm doing. So if you miss anything, just give me a shout. I'll go over it again, because it's the same thing over and over again with FPP. It somehow feels more repetitive than regular quilting, even though you could be doing the same block for the full quilt. This feels more repetitive, but you end up with something a lot more interesting at the end. So last piece for this tiny section, different colour this time. I think we're back to the belly colour. Yep. These little cream tummy. So just folding it back, coming down your seam allowance. Make sure I've got this the right way up, because it's really hard to tell with this fabric print, because the dots are so faded already. Also got stuff stuck to this fabric. So I think that is the back. Clearly used this as my pressing cloth at some point, because it's covered in interfacing and other iron mishaps. Always like to start with a straight edge if I can. If not, I'll go back and trim that down before I sew, but this piece had a straight edge that I could use. And this piece we're just sewing seam, open seam, like edge seam to edge seam, so don't have to worry too much about being too accurate at the start and end. Always just fold the fabric back before I press it, just to make sure it's covering the whole section of paper that I need it to. And that is another little section finished. So we can just trim down the edges of this. We might get our last couple of bits done before we finish up for the evening. Only got a couple of bits left, but one of them is more stripes, and then one of them is just a plain one piece section, one fabric section. Just picking out bits that are big enough to be useful at another point in time, and putting all these tiny wee bits in the scrap bag. Couple of small pieces left. This is just, is that wallpaper? Yes. I've got a scrap of wallpaper that is big enough. That's definitely big enough. See if we can do better with an odd ball shaped piece. That looks, let me look at that. Oh, that scrap, piece of scrap was made for this piece. I don't want to waste a nice rectangle section. So, this piece is only one piece of fabric for this section. So what I'm going to do is I'll use a tiny, actually I won't need to, the only thing I'm going to do is, see, I spoke too soon, it doesn't actually fit because I had the fabric the wrong way. I can make it fit. The only thing I'm going to do to attach this to the paper, just to keep it intact while we make the quit, is just put a couple of basting stitches in here and a couple in here. I'll pop my stitch length up to a 5, which is the max that this machine will go to. That was wrong, go back. and just put a couple of basting stitches in and then trim the edges. You can use glue, just a dab of glue as well, just to keep it, but because this is such a small section, I'm just going to use the basting stitches. If we hold it up to the light, we can see through the paper, and that is actually covering all the pieces that we need it to. So it does fit. We are in luck. So I'll just back tack at this short end just because there's only a couple of stitches in there. You just have to remember you still have to take these stitches out at the end to get the paper out, and the bigger the stitches you use, the harder it's going to be to take the paper out. So using as little basting stitches as I can get away with, and back stitching as little as I can get away with. So if you can see there, I've just got a few stitches here and then a row of stitches up there, but that is the biggest stitch length I can get, a 5. So just a handful of stitches in there just to keep that attached to the paper until we get it into where it needs to be on the quilt. So we should get this last section finished before I finish up for the night. Hopefully we've not missed any like we did on Friday, and we can call this full section done. Again, just trimmed it to the size of the paper. Put this focus back. There we go. So, last piece for this evening, and again we're just doing some orange stripes. So, the first step, extending the stitch lines into the seam allowance, just helps when we are making the stitches. This one's easy because it's just stripes, there's no seams meeting or overlapping. Do I play Animal Crossing? On occasion. I do have it. I play it sometimes. I get like little bursts of, like, I'll play it every day and do my dailies for like a week or two straight, and then I'll not play it for months again. I haven't played it in so long, but I need to. I really only ever play it in the winter since it's so gloomy out and I don't want to go out and about. Yeah, that's like me. I'll play like in the winter time. So like everything that's in my like Critterpedia, whatever they call it, it's like all the stuff you can get in the winter. So like it's never full because I never play in the other seasons. Usually, sometimes I do. I played it on Halloween this year and I was like so annoyed because I forgot that there would be like a special event for Halloween, and so I didn't have all the stuff that I needed to have to like take part on the night. I was a bit annoyed about that, but that was my fault. And like, I always miss the woman who sells turnips, because she's only out up until midday on a Sunday, and I'm never up. Like, and I never think about playing it before lunchtime on a Sunday. Well, thanks, Mona. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate you coming over from a shared link. I'll just be finishing up once I finish this piece anyway. This is late here, and we've got our daughter at the dentist in the morning. Yeah. I don't know what her name is. Turnip lady. Yeah, but like every Sunday I'm on and I'm like, where is she? She's supposed to be about, and then I remember she's only there until like midday. And I'm like, oh well. Missed her again. Oh, I forgot to turn my stitch length back down. I missed her again. I go to Treasure Islands. Like the ones that you fly to, or on the boat or something, or like getting people's codes. Because like every time I try the aeroplane, like try to fly to another island, it's all just the same stuff that's on my island, so pointless. Like, I've restarted the game this year. I like cleared your save file and like completely restarted, but I still can never get like all the fruits, because I think you've got to go to like actually other people's islands. Yes, you fly with people's codes. So using other people's codes, yeah. Yeah, I've been to a couple of the I've been to a couple of them where like, yeah, they literally had everything, and it was like, even like special event stuff that you've never seen before in your life. Like, how did you get that? Oh, so when we originally got the game and the Nintendo Switch, it was my son's. So he was the leader of the island. And then he obviously grew up and didn't want to play it anymore, but we couldn't make any changes unless we played as his character. But also, one of the residents on the island was the weird clown guy, and I really didn't like him, and I could not get rid of him. Like, I tried like all the tips to try and get rid of a neighbour, and he would not leave. So I just restarted. Yeah, send me your code, just on like Instagram, DM is fine. The setup for Christmas, but right now Oh, I'll send you my dream address. It's set up for Christmas, but right now it's torn down. Was he your newest villager? No, I think he was the first new person that comes. You know, like, I don't know. My son told me something about it, like, because he was the first, like, person to join the island. Like, not one that started on the island, but the first one, like, the first new person to join, that you could not get rid of him. Like, he would just never leave. It's something like that. I did the whole, like, pushing him into the pitfalls and everything. Really do not like the clown guy. My dream address is a saved island, so you can still see it. But if you came in right now, it's being constructed. Alright. Oh, I had to get rid of something else worse. Alright, okay. I don't know. I had to restart anyway because my son, the whole thing about having to play as my son's character just to make changes to the island was getting a tad annoying. And then my daughter, so she's 6 and she loves playing together. But if you play with like couch co-op, you can't do anything. It's so like pointless. All you can do is like follow each other around. Have you seen the Animal Crossing movie? No! Like a real movie? Mask Animal Crossing full movie. I'm scared to look at it. I like the music videos where they do music videos, but like they use the Animal Crossing characters. My daughter likes to watch them. Like the Disney Princess one and the Wicked one. She's got them on all the time. Yeah, visiting is so lame. My cousin always wants me to come to his island. And so it's so boring. Yeah, because there's been a couple when I was playing it before, there's been a couple of times where I've been like, I've picked up someone else, like someone's game code and went to their island, and like vice versa, let people onto my island. And like, they came on and like, there were certain things they wanted, like black roses or something. I just about trimmed right the way through that. Yeah, they wanted like black roses or something. I was like, oh yeah, I've got those, but they couldn't actually take them. You could take like the flower, but you couldn't get the plant or something like that. Oh, they needed to dig it up. I don't think it worked though. Or what did I do? It was something weird, like it just didn't work. Don't know if it's the way that we had visited or something like that. and I've let my online membership expire, so I'll need to set that back up again, because I think my daughter's friend from school is getting a Switch for Christmas, so they want to play together. So they have to be your best friend to be able to dig. Oh, hi, that would be it then. Yeah, this was just a random that came to my island looking for certain stuff. I've got no idea how it all works. I don't play it often enough. What's the cute teal thing behind your machine? This, oh, can't see my hand. This thing here. This is the Molly Caddy by Measure and Cut. But I don't have it up because I don't have. I've put a dowel rod in it, but then I've not organised a way of attaching it to my desk. But yeah, it's just a little. It's just one layer of vinyl, well, like, and then other like bits layered on top. But it's just the, like, it's all just like one. Each bit's like one layer of vinyl, just folded, and just got like tons of little pockets in it. It's designed to like hang on the edge of your desk so that you can reach all your stuff, but I don't know, in theory it's a good idea, but it's a bit cumbersome and a bit hard to attach to the desk. But yeah, I did have it filled up, and then as I've used stuff, I've just put it back in my, I've just got a wee bucket that's got all my bits and bobs in it. But it's cute, and it's got like, so there's like, you can make a little tub for your clips, and then it'll just snap on, like if you were hanging it on your desk or wherever. But like I said, good idea in theory. Don't actually use it. Last piece is finished. I'm going to trim this and then I'm just going to check the pattern and make sure we've did all the bits in this section so that I can call it done. So I've just got the pattern pulled up on my big screen here. So why this was we'll get it the other way. Right. Plus Y and Z. This is the tail. You need to remember that you've got seam allowance on so you can kind of layer it up a little bit when you're visualising. W and this kind of this piece. X and A. I can kind of start to see his wee cat body. So we've got the majority of the tail, this is his back, and then the top of his hind leg, his tummy, and this is when it sort of pattern changes here, that is one of his front paws coming out, and then another wee bit of his underbelly there. Cute. So that is the blue section done. Didn't miss any this evening. So that was not bad progress for another 4-hour stream. There's a wee bit more chatting this evening and a wee bit more, a bit of a rocky start with the Wi-Fi, but it seemed to have held up not too bad in the end. I had that clip, where did I just put it? So that is all for this evening. Thanks so much for joining me again tonight. I know it's sort of late afternoon for most of you, and most of you have been sort of just listening in and lurking while at work, so I really appreciate that. I'm trying to make these as late as I can just to catch more people, but I understand that a lot of you are still at work, so thanks anyway for listening in. And thanks so much for everybody that was chatting this evening. Had a really great mix of people in the chat. had a few new subscribers, so again, thanks for that, really appreciate it. Thanks Jaja for sharing the link to your stream again, and bringing some more people over. Hopefully we can continue. We'll certainly continue doing this FPP for another couple of streams up until Christmas, just to get it finished. I'll be back live on Friday night, all going to plan, same time. That's going to be 8 o'clock UK time, which is UTC 0. Yeah, that is all for this evening. Outside of YouTube Live, you can catch me on Instagram's the best place. I'm over there all the time, posting regular updates on my stories. So yeah, if you want to connect more, Instagram's the best place. I'm just at Quilty Crush over there, and I'd love to chat more another time. So thanks very much for your company, and I hope you have a great rest of your evening, and I'll see you again on Friday. Bye!